Welcome to episode 3 of Selling Smart with Sarah Smith
and Jessica Vera.
In today's episode, we are going to review some of the key updates to the Medicare Communications and Marketing Guidelines for 2019. We're going to go over the sales technique, Assumptive Close, and we will end with a motivational story.
We're also super excited to have our first guest on the podcast, our very own Keith Hinson. Keith, would you mind just telling everyone what exactly you do at SMA and also maybe go over your background in the insurance industry?
Jessica, thank you. Like she said, my name's Keith Hinson. I'm the Vice President of Life and Ancillary Sales here at Senior Market Advisors. And for the most part, I'm responsible for helping to grow out anything relating to life sales and any ancillary products throughout the United States. A little bit about me. Actually, by education, was an engineer. Managed to do that for about 2 years and decided that was not the career for me. So started in the late 90s. I jumped in feet first into the insurance space and have been working in some aspect, anything from individual financial planning to group benefits to P&C ever since. And that's a little bit about me and how I got started in the insurance business.
Thank you, Keith. We are so excited to have you and to have your insight here on the podcast today. So before we dive into some sales techniques with Keith, we just wanted to go over some of the updates to the Medicare Communication and Marketing Guidelines for 2019. And now we bring you Disruptive Waves. So there are some updates to the Medicare Communications and Marketing Guidelines for 2019. This isn't exactly new information. They've actually been out for a while now, but we just wanted to go over them and review and make sure you understand some of the updates that CMS made to those guidelines for 2019, because this is something that's really important to make sure that you understand. So if you notice, the name of these guidelines has changed. They used to be known as the Medicare Marketing Guidelines, but they've been renamed to include communications. So the biggest difference is that there is now a distinction between what is considered marketing and what is considered communication materials. And the biggest thing to note about this change is that the materials that fall under the category of communications are not subject to CMS review. So real quick, we're going to go over the difference between marketing and communications and how they really depend on intent.
Yeah, so if we go back to just the basics of what exactly is considered marketing by CMS, it's pretty much just any use of materials with the intent to draw attention to a plan or plans, or also if you intend to influence a beneficiary's decision-making process, as well as if it contains information about plans, benefits, structures, cost sharing, measuring, or ranking standards. So an example of this is get blank plan, like fill in the blank, with a $0 copay. And this is a clear example of just pointing out to a beneficiary a specific plan and discussing a plan's benefits as well. And then, so with that being said, what does CMS then consider a communication? And that includes materials intended to provide information. So that's different than, a specific plan. It's more of the educational component. And that includes all activities and materials aimed at prospective and current enrollees, including caregivers and other decision makers. So another example of this would be, have you gotten your flu shot yet? This is providing information about flu shots and not necessarily intending to influence a beneficiary's decision-making process or pointing them to any specific plan or a plan of benefits.
And now time for an SMA value add. Having trouble managing your business? Paying for an expensive CRM tool at your current FMO? There's a better way. SMA offers a proprietary customer relationship management tool built specifically for insurance agents just like you. Our CRM tool is the perfect place to digitally house all your leads, view upcoming appointments, manage your client relationships, keep track of applications, view your sales numbers, and more. Your account is personal to you and not accessible by other agents. Other FMOs may charge you for a software like this, but if you're contracted with SMA, we give you free access. That's right, free. We even offer free access to the CSG quoting tool directly from our CRM application. Interested in learning more? Visit us online at www.seniormarketadvisors.com/podcast or give us a call at 844-334-6066. So there is also a change in the anti-discrimination section. There's no change on factors that you can't discriminate based on, and that includes things like race, ethnicity, gender, mental or physical disability, medical history, evidence of insurability, those types of things. But what's new for 2019 is that you cannot target potential enrollees from higher income areas, state or imply that plans are only available to seniors rather than to all Medicare beneficiaries. And you can't state or imply that plans are only available to Medicaid beneficiaries unless the plan is a dual eligible special needs plan or MMP. So these are really important distinctions for 2019. So definitely keep a lookout for those.
All aboard!
The Knowledge Train!
Choo-choo!
Okay, so as we mentioned earlier, we have our own Keith Hinson here with us today.
Woohoo, Keith!
And he's going to go over the sales technique called Assumptive Close. So let's get right to it. All right, Keith, why don't we just start with the most basic question? What is an assumptive close?
Well, an assumptive close is a means by which you just assume that that prospect will buy something. It's very important in being a salesperson that when you're out in the field, you're always going to expect that that individual is going to buy. We use that so that when we're talking with someone and we're going through the meeting, that when we get to the end of the presentation, we naturally assume that they're going to want to buy, so we just start straight into the closing process. In traditional closing methods, there is what I like to call anyway a bridge question, and it's the point in time where that person actually commits to buying the product that you're discussing. As an example, a close that I like to use is called the final choice close. And this is a closing method, whereas you ask the prospect, will you be paying, say, by bank draft or check, as an example? And this gives them one final choice to make, where once they make it, you know that they're moving forward with the sale. In the assumptive close, you bypass that altogether. And through the closing process or the presentation process, you're picking up on verbal cues, body language. They've responded favorably to trial closing questions, so that when you get to the end, you're going to assume that they are going to buy, and you go from the presentation straight into the application.
So I guess what I want to know is, why do we actually use the assumptive close technique?
Jessica, the goal of any closing technique is to limit the opportunity for your client to select a non-positive outcome, which in our case is going to be walking away without an application. By using the assumptive close, you're basically taking away that option altogether in favor of completing the sale. And if it's done correctly, it's one of the best closes that you can use in the industry.
And Keith, how would you know when to actually use the assumptive close technique?
Well, assumptive closes, they're a great fit really for any situation, but more specifically Medicare, where the individual may have a little bit of difficulty making a complicated decision on their own. Think of it this way. If you're a patient and you go into a doctor's office and they tell you or that you need, say, shoulder surgery, they're not going to ask you if you think it's a good idea. You know, as your physician, they're going to advise you that that's in your best interest, and then they're going to schedule when you should have the surgery. They don't really ever ask that person's opinion to move forward. It's a similar dynamic that takes place in the assumptive close. When you're talking with that individual, you position yourself as the expert. You tell them what they need to do because it's in their best interest, and then you move forward.
Is this also a method that you should only use for certain products, or does it work with selling just any product?
No, not really. It really works effectively with any product. In any sales situation, and this is a lesson we can all take to heart, we don't sell in the close. We close after we've sold. And take some time to listen to that. So basically, what we are selling is really not that relevant to the close, which is simply the bridge to the application.
All right, so what are the signs that the beneficiary gives you to let you know that they're moving forward and they're ready to enroll?
All right, some signs to watch for, and this is always kind of an interesting topic because depending on the individual and the agent, things can get a little fuzzy, but we'll do our best to try to go through and list some things to watch for. Probably the easiest is always look for positive responses to trial closing questions throughout the presentation. Just as an example, if you're talking and you try the trial closing question, if you were to purchase this policy, things would work out better for your family, wouldn't they? And they answer in the affirmative and they said yes. That's a good indication as you're approaching the end that it would be a good time to move forward. One thing to keep in mind when you're asking these trial closing questions is trial closing questions always only ask for opinions. Be careful and don't ask questions during the presentation that actually require a decision because you're not ready for that point in the process yet. 2, watch their body language. They say, I forget the statistic, it's like 90% of everything that's said is nonverbal. So pay attention. Are they leaning forward? Are they leaning back? Do they have an open posture, a closed posture? And this will give you a good idea of whether or not they're ready to move forward. And then probably the third thing I want to bring up is just watch for subtle speech patterns. Anytime that they move from talking about something like you, and then they start using we, that's always a good thing to look for. If they are describing the product that you're talking about in a positive light, that is a good kind of signal to watch for. If they happen to offer up a referral before you even finish the presentation, that's another indication. There's many more. It's something that you'll have to practice, but those would be 3 to at least get you started.
So all that sounds really great, but I guess what I want to know is what do you do if the beneficiary stops you or if they have any type of objections?
Excellent question. First thing, you have to get your head around that objections are perfectly normal. A lot of times in the sales world, especially if you're new, objections tend to freeze people in their tracks. Expect it. It's okay. An objection usually means that they're actually interested in what you're talking about. So take it as a positive. Do pay attention though. If you do get objections, in a lot of instances, it usually means that you didn't spend enough time in the middle part of your presentation and ask enough questions. Because if you do it correctly, you should have already answered those objections earlier in your conversation. So when you do get those objections, the first goal that you're going to have is you got to figure out why it is that they stopped you and uncover that objection. One way, I call this kind of my Hail Mary punt in the land of objections. You can always fall back on this. Anytime they kick back on you, simply say, interesting. Why do you feel that way? That's going to do 2 things. First off, it's going to give you what you need, which is time to figure out what you're going to say. And 2, if you're doing what you're supposed to and staying quiet, it gives them a chance to talk, and likely they're going to tilt their hand about what that objection is, and then you can address it, one thing or one objection at a time. There's lots more to learn about when it comes to overcoming objections, but unfortunately, that's a whole nother conversation. That's probably going to take more time than we have today.
That's actually perfect because episode number 4 is actually going to be all about overcoming objections. So tune in next time and we will be going over that in a lot more detail.
And now time for an SMA value add.
Looking for extra marketing support? SMA Storefront is your one-stop shop for all your marketing needs. Use SMA's Agent Storefront to customize marketing materials, like posters and business cards. Download sales trainings, white papers, and more. SMA Storefront gives you the ability to customize marketing materials with your contact information, so they are one of a kind. Order banners, posters, and giveaways directly from Storefront. Continue your knowledge on sales techniques by viewing the Building Your Business video series and downloading Medicare-related white papers. Customize your marketing, educate yourself, and get the tools you need to succeed, all with SMA Storefront. Interested in learning more? Visit us online at www.seniormarketadvisors.com/podcast or give us a call at 844-334-6066.
So now that we know exactly what the assumptive close is and how to use it, I thought it might be fun if we did a little role play so everybody could maybe get just a better idea of what an assumptive close actually sounds like.
That's the funny part about an assumptive close. There's really not much to role play because the basic premise of an assumptive close is that you've already closed the client. So without doing a traditional role play, let's go ahead and run through what the wrap up should sound like. I'm going to do a little bit of role play here. So, Miss Prospect, based on what we talked about, the best fit for you will be the Anthem MA plan. Your plan will become effective March 1st. Currently, do you have any appointments scheduled?
I do.
Great. Any visits that you have before the first of the month, go ahead and use your old insurance card. Following, use your new card. Do you need any help setting up any future appointments?
No, I don't think so.
All right, great. That's perfectly fine. If you need any help, just let me know. Go ahead and be expecting a welcome call from the carrier here in a few days and expect to receive your cards in a packet. Probably will arrive in like 10 to 14 days. In addition, I'll be reaching out in a few weeks to make sure everything is going well and ensure you understand how to use your benefits. Is there anything else I can do for you before I leave?
No, I think that's it.
Great. Have a wonderful day.
Awesome, Keith. Thank you. So before we move on, Keith, can you just do a quick wrap up of the assumptive close and just go over the key factors to make an assumptive close work?
That would be really easy. Really to make an assumptive close work, besides what we've kind of already talked about, the two most important things that you can do as an agent, first off, is your attitude. You have to go into the house. You have to be supremely confident, not only in yourself, but what it is that you're telling that client. If there's any vacillation in what you're telling them and you're stuttering a little bit, it's going to come across as shady and they're not going to trust you, and the assumptive close will not work. One of the best ways to get that confidence is you have to know your products. Do not go in there half-educated. Be able to talk confidently about absolutely every aspect that you're talking with them about, because if not, it's not going to work. But other than that, you should be good to go.
Well, thank you, Keith. All this information has been really helpful. And the more sales techniques you have in your back pocket, I feel like the better off you are in the field.
And now, ending on a positive note.
All right, Keith. So since we have you here, I've also heard that you have a ton of amazing stories. And so we would love to hear a motivational story of some kind, maybe from your time in the field, or even just something that's a little bit of a feel-good story, something you'd be willing to share with us.
Well, I tell you what, let's talk about perseverance. And hopefully this will help people get through their day a little bit earlier. This was about a specifically difficult client I had. I called him pretty much every day for months, it seemed like. Before I finally got a meeting, I was really jazzed. So I went out there, we sat down, and we put together a great presentation. Had some good products in mind that he was going to sell. And I was new in the insurance industry, so I was really excited. I felt like I was going to go home and actually at some point here very soon after have some money in my bank account. He called us and decided that he talked to a friend of his and he was going to go another route. And we got him to share with us the details of that particular decision, which was not a good decision. And we laid it all out for him of all the reasons that he was making a bad decision. But he chose to go the other route. And I was fairly devastated because at the time it was going to be a significant client. But, being the persevering agent that I was, I just couldn't leave well enough alone. And like a week went by and I actually faxed him over. It was at the time, this was with Minnesota Life, client satisfaction survey about how for customer satisfaction, they were in like the 98th percentile or something like that. And really it was ultimately just passive aggressive because I wanted to, get mine. And he called me back and basically stated that he had made this terrible mistake. And so we went back out there, sat down with him, managed to switch all that business over to us at the time, and it made a significant difference, at least for me monetarily. So all that goes to say, especially in the insurance business, there's no bigger gift or skill or whatever you want to call it that an agent can have is to always persevere. One foot in front of the other. Every day is a new day, and always keep that attitude great.
Love that. Thank you, Keith. All right, that's going to do it for today's episode. And as we mentioned earlier in the podcast, tune in next time where we're going to discuss how to overcome objections and close the sale. So thanks again, Keith, for taking the time to go over the Assumptive Close with us today. We really, really appreciate it.
And of course, we appreciate you listening and joining us today on Selling Smart with Senior Market Advisors.
Thanks for joining us this week. Want to be featured in Ending on a Positive Note? Send your motivational stories to www.seniormarketadvisors.com/podcast. Interested in learning more about Senior Market Advisors? Give us a call at 844-334-6066.
We appreciate you joining us this week on
Selling Smart
with Senior Market Advisors.